Ladies and gentlemen, here's another valuable session. Investor Toolkit, a step-by-step guide. Navigating foreign real estate markets can be challenging for investors. Today, our panel of industry experts, led by Costas Markides, board member, international tax and corporate service from KPMG, will provide a comprehensive guide, including maximizing tax efficiency in Cyprus and other key topics. Costa, we're looking forward for your insight and guidance.
Thank you very much for the kind invitation. My name is Costas Markides. I am a tax partner for KPMG based in Nicosia. And I have the pleasure of moderating this session today. I promise to you that it will be interesting, and I'm very determined to have a frank discussion with my co-panelists here. The real estate market in Cyprus, as you are all aware, is not flawless. Actually, it is ridden with many flaws, such as delays on obtaining final approvals, titles to the properties, delivering the properties to investors, etc., etc. The good news is the fact that the property law, our legal system that is, adequately protects investors who correctly utilize it. And this is one of the targets of today's session. I have with me a lawyer, I have an estate agent, I have a developer, and I have an accountant to confuse and derail the whole situation. In Cyprus, wherever you go, you will find a lawyer and an accountant. So, having made this small introduction, let us now turn to our panelists for a very interesting and frank discussion. But first of all, let me introduce them to you. Yiannis Antoniou is a lawyer with Pyrgou Vakis, Rosalia Klimova, INDOM and House Counsel, and Yiannis Antoniou, AYIA NAPA MARINA. Thank you very much for coming today, and let's start with the first question. As you will see, I do not have a fancy tablet, and that probably reveals my age, but I find it more dependable to have my paper and my notes in front of me. Back to classics. I would never switch. So I will start with Yiannis. Yiannis, in your opinion, a general question to kickstart the conversation. What are the challenges facing home buyers and sellers in 2023?
Thank you, Costas. Thank you for having me here today, and thank you all for being here with us today. I hope there are no bankers in the room. I think one of the biggest challenges we're facing today is with banks.
I wish we had the bankers in the room, actually, so they can hear it.
I'm sorry. One of the biggest challenges we're facing today, both on the buyers but on the sellers' end, is over-compliance and AML requirements that, as we can see, have become extremely excessive. I am sure that they're well-intended, but one can argue that they have gone too far. If Cyprus is to maintain its competitive advantage, it's important that the banking sector reevaluates its KYC requirements and how far they're going in order to complete this requirement. KYC requirements and AML compliance these days not only puts a burden on the seller and the buyer, but sometimes even prohibits transactions in Cyprus. So it's important that they evaluate this section, and we're daily witnessing extreme requirements and unreasonable requirements. And I think that if we're going to keep the real estate sector alive, this should be reevaluated and be looked into. Another area that poses a challenge is inventory. I think Cyprus has done an excellent job in promoting itself as a herd cartering jurisdiction. We are indeed an ideal location with sunny weather and an excellent tax system, but the problem is that we're having all these professionals coming to Cyprus, but we cannot provide a house for them at times. So it's important that, as Costas said, we modernize and we eliminate bureaucracy. This is very important if we're going to be able to provide housing to all these people coming to Cyprus. And I think the only way forward is technology. We have seen a digital platform whereby building permits are now issued electronically. And the Ministry of Interior recently said that this will expand to larger developments as well, which is something we're looking forward to seeing. Because unless we eliminate bureaucracy, I think there are going to be further delays, and buildings are not going to be built that fast. So we're looking forward to it, and we're looking forward to the buildings growing in Cyprus. Another issue that has been noticed is there's an imbalance in supply and demand in the rental sector. As I said before, we had this influx of professionals coming to Cyprus that has been a trend over the past 10 years. And especially after the situation in Lebanon and the war in Ukraine, people coming to Cyprus are becoming more and more. So it's important that we find a solution to this problem. So apart from making things go faster, as I said before, by using technology and digitalizing procedures, I think the government should also step in and help. Perhaps some of the things that the government could do is to build houses on its own through fundings and assisting developers through joint ventures in doing so. Also, we could have controlled rents and provide apartments to eligible tenants. And we could also assist in doing so by fundings, as I said before. Another issue is cost and, of course, increased interest rates. Unfortunately, I'm not sure there's something we can do about this. But we have seen that the Cypriot real estate sector is resilient, and it has proved itself to outstand the difficulties that we have faced in the past years due to COVID and the war in Ukraine. But I do think that if we're going to keep up our position in the market, we should modernize and make procedures available through digital form. Thank you.
Very recently, there was a meeting between the President of the Republic of Cyprus and the 25 largest foreign investors in Cyprus. Now, how they chose these 25, don't ask me, but they were 25. And one of the solutions that were given as part of the issues that you have mentioned, Georgia, is for build to rent, to give motives to developers so they can build, not to sell, but to rent. So I understand that, yes, this is a problem. The government understands there is a problem. Cyprus, of course, is an island, but there is a lot of space to improve. So I think I will agree. I will agree with everything that you have stated, and especially that you see there's the number one problem, the banks. Yanni, I will go to the gentleman of the panel. I'm excluded because I am the moderator.
Hello, Costas. Nice to be with you. Congratulations to the organizers for a very fresh organization, and all the best to all exhibitioners. I hope they do very well today.
but you will still get a question. What factors or issues do you think should an investor consider when searching for the most suitable real estate property?
This is an endless, it's a question with an endless answer. I'll try to pinpoint 4 or 5 and suggest some things I would put in my to-do list. Going through the different fluctuations of the market, and especially the real estate industry, as well as the 2013, which was the last one we experienced, we have seen that there were some properties that were immune from the pressure of the pricing towards downwards, and this was mainly attributed to the location. We've seen that properties all over Cyprus that were seafront, beachfront, or they had a sea view, they managed to retain their value, and in many cases also increase. Where everything else was going down, they not only retained, but they appraised in valuation as well. And also specialized projects that are part of a bigger master plan that provide more than just real estate. We've seen that in contrary to the whole market and the tendencies, they were moving upwards. So as the old saying, location, location, location says, I think still is the number one thing to consider. Then if I would place number 2, I would definitely do architecture and interior ergonomics. In the recent years, I am very happy to see that the main investors in real estate, which are the developers, they have taken leaps of faith and they have invested large amounts of money into the habitability and thinking, what's going to happen after I sell to the people who will be living? And they've created fantastic buildings, very nice architecture that differentiates from one another. Going back in the 90s, you've seen one apartment building, you've seen them all. Now it's not a reality anymore. Every project has its own unique characteristics. And this also has to do with the interior ergonomics. An apartment is not, or a villa or a house, is not just a property and an asset. It's something that you share with your family, with your loved ones. You wake up in the morning, the last thing you see before you close your eyes, the living room needs to work. You need to consider where the sun rises from, where the sun goes down, the energy efficiency, the positioning. It's not just the square meters and the price per square meter, because it might be big, but it might not work for you. And of course, this brings me to the materials. It's very, very important to check the materials that are used are sustainable. They are of our century, let alone our decade, and they limit the costs that will be spent throughout the usage of the property. And last but not least, I would say you're buying not just a property, you're buying an asset. So you need to be careful. You need to run your research. What have they done before selling this asset? Have their assets aged in time or maintained their value? Are they affluent? Have they sufficient funding in order to guarantee that their promise will be delivered to me? And is the project overfinanced? These are my top 5 factors that I would say that one should take a good look before buying.
Thank you, Yiannis. Just on your last point, are they being overfinanced? This directly links to the risk of the developer going bankrupt? Or is it me that I didn't understand? Because it is an issue.
I'm not
it's an issue, and
it happens, but
I used to be involved in the citizenship program, and we were trying to be as careful as possible.
Correct.
And one of the first questions that arose from investors was the credibility of the developer.
Correct.
So
it's very important, because even if someone starts with the best intentions, but doesn't have the means, or at the end of the road, they cannot reach their end goal because of factors not affecting them, or because they cannot withstand the blows on the environment or the economy, and they go down on the promise of delivering or delivering what they promised, then it's an issue.
I fully agree. Rosalia, last but not least, I want to discuss a little bit about the permanent residency program.
Of course.
Which is now very current with everything that is happening around us and has a direct impact on Cyprus as well, no doubt. So can you please elaborate on the immigration-related incentives for investments
Of course.
and its relevance for international investors in the current market, please?
So Cyprus has been an attractive destination for permanent residency for both EU nationals and international investors. But the Cypriot government implemented a new program to attract international investment in the country by the program called the Cyprus Permanent Residency Program, whereby an investor with the amount of 300,000 euro plus VAT has 4 types of categories of options in order to invest in Cyprus. So there's a dual benefit there because on the first hand, you acquire real estate property in a lucrative market such as Cyprus, whereby there's appreciation of the value of your property, but as well, at the same time, you gain residency access to a European country with great infrastructure, with a great educational system, with a great tax regime. So there's multiple benefits, and it really makes sense to invest in Cyprus at the moment. So the 2 main categories that are relevant to today's discussion with regards to real estate is the investment that you can make into residential properties. So that can be up to 2 properties from a developer, and it has to be a new property. There is the possibility of purchasing 2 units from 2 different developers, but the value of the property has to be up to 300,000 euros plus VAT. Then there's the alternative route of purchasing commercial property. In that scenario, you can buy offices, hotels, you can buy shops, or a combination of the above, and continue with go for a different type of investment where you're actually generating income on your investment. So an additional benefit from all that is that after 5 years of residency in Cyprus, the investor actually has the right to apply for citizenship, which gives you even more rights and even more kind of willingness to be able to invest in a country where you feel like you're an actual citizen of and that you feel welcome to. And there's so many opportunities and an actual infrastructure system that enables you to live here a very good quality of life.
I fully agree that this investment and the potential to receive the citizenship is a big incentive and makes foreign investors feel like they are welcome. They are investing in a property, but also they are investing in a future life in Cyprus. And I think that we have mentioned a lot of benefits in relation to the quality of life, the safety, raising a family. I think nobody can doubt these qualities that Cyprus features. Yiannis, sorry, you want to
I wanted
add something?
to add that this is not only beneficial for the developer or the buyer, but it's also beneficial for the government, the state, the country in general, because this way they attract new talent. This way they multiply the population, because multiplying the population creates more opportunities for commerce in general. And I think one of the restrictions of Cyprus is that not only it's an island, it has a small population, and that restricts in many ways business. So I think plans like this, they come and they add value to the product called Cyprus.
I agree with you.
My next question is more on the legal aspect of acquiring real estate in Cyprus, Georgia. Can you please tell me the importance? I have also mentioned in my introduction some of the problems, not all of them, but indicatively the biggest problems that the real estate market faces in Cyprus. So just how important is the advance due diligence that you carry, that you do your homework diligently before you invest in a country, in any country, but in this particular case, in Cyprus?
Thank you, Costas. I cannot stress enough how important due diligence is before proceeding with purchasing real estate in Cyprus. It is one of the most important things to do before entering into a contract for purchasing. Due diligence is the process through which the purchaser acquires information, documents, and assurances in relation to the property he or she is about to purchase. It's one of the safest ways to make sure that the property you're purchasing will not lead to costly and lengthy litigation afterwards. So why is it important? First of all, ownership verification. You are able to verify that the title to your property is a good and marketable title. You are able to verify the ownership of the property. You are able to verify through a search at the land registry that the owner of the property is actually the seller of the property, and it is one of the most important parts of the transaction. Another important aspect is that you're able to identify if the property has encumbrances over it. So you're able to verify if, to identify and detect any encumbrances and liens over the property, if the property is subject to any restrictions or easements that may restrict the use of the property on the transferability of the property. Additionally, you are able to make a risk assessment of the company. A good lawyer will be able to identify if the property is subject to litigation, or if there is pending litigation against the property, or if the property is subject to contractual obligations. A legal due diligence provides security to the transaction. You will be able to identify risks that surround the property, and you will be able to rectify most of them before entering into the transaction, or at least you're going to make an informed transaction and sign an informed contract. And lastly, the results of the due diligence are imported into the agreement. So any risk you identify, any dangers can be recognized in the contract you're about to sign, and most of the times the seller will be able to make representations in relation to those risks identified, so your contract will cover you. So yes, I cannot stress enough how important due diligence is, so no buyer should ever neglect doing it. Thank you.
But this is all good in theory. In practice, have you seen weird cases? Have you seen double sales? Have you seen properties with encumbrances?
Not in our office. We always make sure that our clients go through legal due diligence. It's a step that if the client even doesn't ask us to do it, we sometimes do it ourselves because...
Did you find during this process, have you...
No, we haven't. And I have to say that developers in Cyprus are quite professionals, although we've heard of cases that there were instances that they were...
That's why I'm asking, because
Yes.
I've heard of cases too.
We've heard. Personally, I've never had the experience, which is a good sign, I guess. But yes, we've heard of cases that there were double sales.
Sales without ownership.
Or sales without ownership, or with bankrupt developers. So yes, we've heard a lot, but I haven't had the experience.
Yeah. So as much as your seller seems honest and forward to you, I think it's wise to spend some additional money and go into the extra trouble of checking and searching that the property is fine. I think this will give you peace of mind and save you a lot of trouble.
Correct.
Yiannis, the million euro question and the eternal debate that ensues in the real estate business. New or used property? I know that you are building new, but I want your true
my honest
and fair opinion.
This is the dilemma every buyer actually is faced when she or he or they decide to proceed with an investment in a real estate property. And they all come down to the question, should I go for a resale? Should I go for a renew? This is based always on personal preference. There is no right or wrong answer here. There are for and against for both things. So I'll just list 3 of each that I think that they're most important. Considering that everyone will take this decision by themselves. So starting with the resales, you have no VAT. It's a resale. The VAT has already been paid by the first buyer. Imposing VAT on the second buyer would mean, as you perfectly know, double taxation, so it doesn't happen, so you have no VAT.
That's a plus.
That's a plus. I'll just give you the pluses. In resales, usually, if there was something that would appear in terms of bad works or misbuilt, it would have been identified by the previous owner and dealt with. So you're basically getting something that someone took care of business for you before.
So what you see is what you get.
Yes, usually. Okay, I use the term usually. And the other added value that I would add for the resales would be that you're buying something that has add-ons. In other words, they already did the AC, they did the upgrade, they put the pool outside, they put the fireplace, they did stuff in order to upgrade what they thought was best for the property. So going for the new builds, the top one in my head is that you are buying something fresh. You're buying something new. You're buying something that doesn't remind you of another decade or another fashion. You're still trendy, you're still fashionable, so that increases your chances. In case you want to liquidate your asset, you can do more easily. Another huge advantage is, for me, as I said before, the architecture, the materials. The more we progress with the real estate industry, we find better solutions to develop everything. So you have new materials, you have new techniques, new methods that make the habitability, but also the usage and the expenses that derive from the use less. And finally, I would say that you don't have title transfer fees that you have in resales because VAT applies, which sort of zeroes out with no VAT because they're almost compatible.
I have many questions, but we don't have enough time, so I will only ask you about what you said at the beginning. You mentioned interior ergonomics, and I don't really understand what that is. I'm an accountant. I introduced myself. What is that in 2 words?
When you sit in your living room, and the position of your TV when you're watching your favorite team playing football is not in a way that the sun comes in and doesn't allow you to view what you want to watch. When you have dead spaces in the house, you don't have endless corridors. There is a maximization and utilization of the areas so that the actual square meterage that you pay for, you utilize. These are just few things.
Okay. So as I understand, interior ergonomics is when my wife is at the gym and I can watch football.
Correct. Correct, that's exactly it.
Makes sense. Rosalia, from your perspective as an estate agent, please outline the key factors that investors should consider when deciding to invest in real estate in general, but in Cyprus more specifically.
So a lot of the questions that we have from clients and investors are in the context of the Cyprus Residence Program and what is the best structure to do for their investment. And I would always say in the context of whether to purchase as an individual or whether to purchase through a company, a Cyprus company. Under both routes and both structures, an investor can still apply for the Cyprus residence program. So it gives you a lot of flexibility on determining what is the size of your investment, what is the purpose of the investment, and especially for smaller size investments for purpose of self-residence in Cyprus, it makes much more sense to invest as a physical person. It gives you the advantage of the reduced VAT application, which has recently undergone some changes, but for investors who purchase a property up to 475,000 and up to 190 square meters of total buildable area, they are allowed to apply for reduced VAT and therefore pay 19%, pay 5% instead of 19%. Up to the 130 first square, up to the first 130 square meters. That is, yes, up to the first 130 square meters, which is quite a big advantage, and it cuts down the cost of the investment. However, on the other hand, as a physical person, you need to take into consideration that there's actually limitations on international investors, as non-EU nationals have to acquire a permission from the Council of Ministers to hold real estate property, and they have a limitation on how much property they can own. They can either own 2 residential units, 1 commercial unit or 1 residential unit, or they can buy a land up to 4,000 square meters and then construct their house on it. On the other hand, when you have a much larger investment and you want to generate income from your investment, it would much make more sense to invest through a company, to set up a Cyprus company, and to take the advantage of the favorable tax regime in Cyprus, of the corporate taxation of 12.5%, the no taxation on the dividends received, the ability to have an unlimited amount of investment on unlimited number of properties, just like any EU national or Cypriot citizen, and have the protection of the limited liability of the company. So when clients address us, we try to first discuss what is their investment objective, what is the purpose, what are their needs of the individual client, and discussing which avenue to pursue in order to get the best result possible.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all, but you need to see the client, speak to him, see what he needs, his special needs.
Of course, yes. And the benefit is that they can, under both routes, they can apply for the Cyprus Residence Permit Program, which win-win, really.
I think I'm going to ask you another question.
Of course.
And we can switch the order so the audience doesn't get bored. What should investors be mindful when considering investment for the purposes of acquiring the permanent residency in Cyprus?
So first, I'm going to start with a generic comment that it's really important to hire a very strong team of professionals, starting from a good real estate agent that will find the best possible property for your client's needs. Second of all, to hire a very good tax advisor who will be able to advise on what structure to pursue.
I can suggest one.
Of course. And thirdly, to find a very good lawyer who will be able to assist both in the element of the transaction, of doing the due diligence, as my colleague said, but also to do the permanent application, the application for the permanent residence. So as the program has actually undergone changes as of the 2nd of May, 2003, there's some changes that have to be considered, and those are that in order to enable the client or the investor to actually apply for the residence permit, the full amount of the 300,000 euro plus VAT has to be received in the bank account of the developer. That kind of counteracts with the instinct to have a gradual payment for your property, where you want to pay little bit by little bit, with the architect or surveyor telling you what has been constructed, what is the level of construction. So there's like a dual kind of contrasting positions where you want to invest fast in order to get the immigration permit, but on the same hand, slow down in order to have a secure transaction.
Which may go back to the question that Yiannis answered below. If you buy used, you know what you get, you pay for it, it's yours.
However, if you buy used, you only have to buy commercial property in order to enable yourself to apply for the residence permit program, because for newly buildings, there has to be residential.
I see. So there is a downturn to it.
Yes, and lastly, I would like to say that there's been quite a few changes in the investment program. So those have to be mindful that the actual annual income has been increased from 30,000 per year to 50,000 per year. There's no more the possibility of having dependents on your application, such as your parents or in-laws, which for some would be a positive rather than a negative. So there's quite a lot of things that need to be overviewed, and therefore a strong team of professionals is what I would advise for.
Thank you very much. Yanni, Cyprus, being an island, the Adam and Eve argument to convince investors to buy property in Cyprus is that land is scarce and you need to hurry, you need to buy now before we run out of land. Now, what features do you think a property must have in order to remain competitive throughout time? Because we have seen acquisitions that started up very high, and even though we are an island, ended up very low. So your opinion, from your experience.
Cyprus has this advantage that is also disadvantage. Land is scarce, so you can't make more land, and we've used a lot of it. So residential land is running out, and is running out fast, and that is why prices are being pushed upwards. And this is where our grandfathers and fathers were saying, you know, invest in land, land is gold. So, but at the same time, Cyprus suffers from one very bad thing. Buildings are aging faster than their natural age. And this is because people do not consider, and buyers do not request from the sellers or the developers some key fundamentals, like after-sale service. Who will help me rent it out and resale it in case I want to liquidate it? Is the infrastructure of the property designed correctly? The MEPs, as we call it, the mechanical, the electrical, and the plumbing, will I get the plan? So if I want to upgrade or maintain my property, do I know where to drill, or am I just doing it blindly? How updated is the technology used? Is it efficiency in terms of electricity, thermo, and isolation, so that using it is good? Do I have the support of the maintenance? But for me also is, does it offer me the lifestyle attributes that everyone wants to experience, which is maybe a concierge, maybe a valet, maybe a communal pool, maybe a communal gym, maybe part of an integrated resort that has some restaurants, some retails that I can be a part of and experience, have my friends come and have the ease of have all the services around you.
Like AYIA NAPA MARINA.
Like many projects, yes, and AYIA NAPA MARINA. And we have seen that developers have taken the leap, because developers, everyone should consider them as the biggest investors in a country, because they invest before the actual buyer comes in. And they invest in architecture, they invest in mechanics, they invest in the infrastructure. So it's important to look at all parameters, not just what I'm buying. Also, how am I going to manage it?
Thank you, Yanni, very much. I think I am a tax person, so I know I'm running out of time, but the last round of questions will be tax related. I deal a lot with high net worth individuals due to my profession, and I get to know them most of the times on a personal level, because if you don't meet them and the family, they will never, you will never understand them, they will never trust you. So one of the main concerns they have, Georgiamou, this question I think is to you. Inheritance taxes. What is the deal in Cyprus? Because there are countries that can take away a chunk as big as 40 or 45%. In the US, I remember it was 45%. I think in the UK, it's 40%. Yes. So please promote Cyprus a little bit on that front.
To let you know that there are no inheritance taxes in Cyprus. So yes.
What a surprise.
What a surprise. But however, you have to have your domicile in Cyprus in order to be exempt from inheritance tax. If your domicile is abroad, you have to be careful and make sure that you do your inheritance plan well. But in any case, even if your domicile abroad, domicile is a very complex matter. I'm not going to explain it right now because we're running out of time. But if you have your domicile abroad, irrespective of that, if you have real estate in Cyprus, the Cyprus laws will apply to your real estate in Cyprus, even if your domicile is abroad. So this brings into play the making of a will or the formation of a trust. So you should be very careful because even if your domicile is abroad, inheritance laws and tax laws will apply to you if you have immovable property in Cyprus. So Cyprus also has forced heirship rules, which means a certain portion of your real estate will have to go to specific persons in specific proportions. So if you want to avoid that, you may need to consider the formation of a trust, which has many benefits, including tax benefits, and also through a trust you can manage your wealth and do your asset planning. I'm not going to go into detail because I know that we only have 20 seconds, but we can discuss this afterwards if you like. Thank you so much.
I think that's a good point to end the interrogative part of the panel. And with 1 second left, I need an applause for this one. Time's up. Thank you very much. Thank you all very much. We can now take questions from the audience if you wish. Yes?
I can't speak for any other country, but for the UK, your worldwide assets are exposed to death duties, and you don't have to live in the UK for this to be the case. I'm non-resident for the last 25 years, and I'm exposed to death duties worldwide. So when I pass away, unless I manage my assets properly, they will take 40% of what I have worldwide. And there's
maybe
no way
you
you can
should
hide.
consider a trust. Have you tried? No?
Of course. But that's the point. A lot of people don't know this as a fact, and they will take without any hesitation.
The double taxation agreement does not cover inheritance issues. Any other questions? Despina, I see you, but I'm going to take 1 or 2 more questions. If there are 1, 2, everything was clear. Thank you very much.
Thank you.